Tutanekai. The history of Tutanekai, there have been 50,000 versions of the story of Tutanekai and Hinemoa, mainly because everybody in this town are connected to one, the other, or both. And so that's why we have so many different versions. For me, when you look at the playing of taonga puoro, which are Māori instruments throughout Aotearoa, New Zealand, all iwi have sounds that are made depending on where they live. If they live by the sea, then you have sounds that come from the sea, from shells, from animals. So if you live near a forest, then you would have a lot of trees, a lot of leaves. There's all sorts of sounds that are made. Where we are, we're in Rotorua, where we are right sort of in the centre of the North Island. We are by some lakes, and so the sounds we have are a kind of mix of both, sort of like between the sea and forestry. So I guess the history of Tutanekai, for me, he was the beginning of using kōauau in his life. And so he used the kōauau, the flute, for him to meet his beloved Hinemoa. And a whole lot of generations followed. But Tutanekai had a nephew, the son of Tūnahopu. His name is Tiki. And Tiki plays a different flute, which is pūtorino. Totally different structure, totally different sounds, and depending on the purpose of the sounds that you use, whether it's a happy sound, a sad sound, or anywhere in between. So for me, what little I know about Tutanekai and what little we have picked up over the years has led to the sounds of a kōauau for Tutanekai was a happy love sound. But if you look throughout the rest of Aotearoa, other iwi only play kōauau for sad sounds. And there are times and places where you can see the differences. An example is for Tainui. They have kōauau as well. But the main time that it was heard was when there was the bad flu epidemic that hit Tainui in the late 1800s and early 1900. And so when you heard a kōauau in Tainui, that's when you knew that somebody had passed. And so that's one of the stories that I've heard in Waikato about kōauau with them. So when I play kōauau in Tainui, I be careful. We've also heard about kahungunu. So Tamatea Pōkai Whenua is one of the big chiefs back in the day, and he was a player. He was a kōauau player. And there's a mountain, Taumata Whakatangitangi Kōauau Ki Taku Tahu. I think I've shortened it. I can't remember, I'm not from Kahungunu, but I know that the name is about, that is the mountain where Tamatea played the kōauau to his beloved. So I think the main thing with kōauau is that there's history everywhere. And there are lots of other instruments besides the kōauau. So for us here, with our wānanga that we are doing today, is based on what little we have picked up from the research that has been gathered, and to make some kind of meaning of why we want to use it today. Yeah, so I think that's a little bit about the past of the Kawauau. His flute was called Murirangaranga and was made from the arm of a person. And so even though the story, it's a pretty gory story, that one, but at the end of the day, the koa was used for the tool to enable Tutanekai and Hinemoa to be together, while their parents did not want them to be together. So it became a tool that was used centuries ago, and here we are today trying to use it too. So Murirangaranga is the name of the koa, and today we have many koa around us, and so that'll come in another piece. So, kia ora.
Do you just want to talk to how Tutanekai made his koa?
Yeah, well, the koa was made out of the arm. Tutanekai was basically a baby, so he didn't make the koa. It was his father that made the koa. So WHAKAUE would have to take credit for that too. So the bone came from the arm of the tohunga that was involved in the naming of Tutanekai, and eventually that bone was made into a flute which became used for making love sounds. So it came from a gory story, but was used as for love messages from one to another.
Just in terms of like Tutanikai's tikanga, in terms of like how he would actually drill when he did make his own, do you just want to speak to that?
Back in 1990, I went to Waikato University to do study related to teaching in immersion, Māori immersion classes, and at that time, Hereni Melbourne, who was prolific with waiata, sounds, he was doing a whole lot of things around the time of the building of kohanga reo and kura kaupapa throughout New Zealand. So he was making a whole lot of recordings of different things. Anyway, what he decided was to, in 1989 was his first class. So I was involved in the second class. So basically we were guinea pigs. He began to do research throughout the country. Everybody that was involved in his class, the first thing you had to do was give your whakapapa. Then our task was to go back to our own iwi and research what musical instruments were used in our own area. So in terms of the connection to Tutanekai, that is the most well-known koa player where I am from, which is in the patch of Te ARAWA. And what Hereni had found in his research was that the koa of Tutanekai only had 3 holes, and the holes that are on it match the joints on the forefinger and the knuckle. And so the 3 holes are specific to the person who owns this koa. I'm not sure how he got that kōrero, but it makes perfect sense to me. And I love the idea because we could put those holes anywhere. And because I've learnt for a long time, over 30 years, playing kōrero, I know that just moving a millimetre one way or the other makes a difference on whether you are playing a kōrero that can play a tune. The other thing with when you play a kōrero is what kind of sounds, what is the purpose of your sounds that you're making. So Tutanekai, he was making sounds to Hinemoa. What I do is I play waiata, so I play songs. I don't just make sounds, I play songs. The songs are specific to here, and when I had a look at all the hundreds and thousands of waiata we have, most of the waiata that I play are mainly mōtetea. Mōtetea are waiata tangi sad songs. And the notes that are in those sad songs tend to be the notes that match with the joints of the forefinger that are drilled on the kōrero. So I guess 1,000 people can have 1,000 different ways of drilling it. I like ours. I like the story of that Hirini shared with us. And because I play waiata, it fits perfectly because I now can play waiata made by the sounds directly from these kōrero. Not every kōrero plays perfectly the same. What I've learned over 30 plus years is that you need a lot of kōrero, and out of all of those kōrero you will find the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until you get to standardize the good sounds that you are trying to play. Just like anything else, the more you do, the better you get. And so for me, that's kind of what led to what we are trying to do today. The other thing is that every hand is different. And what I love is that now we have a lot of people wanting to learn kōrero, and they all come from different iwi. And what I do is try to follow on the same footsteps as Hirini when he put it in front of me. So I'm saying to everybody, go back to your own iwi, find your own stories, try and follow the footsteps of your tupuna. Every tupuna, you have many proverbs about how the tupuna lay the paths in front of us. And so, yeah, if you want to be a trailblazer and go and do your own path, well, that's fine. But I'm not one of those. I like to learn about my tupuna, how it was played, why it was played, and now we're trying to do the same thing today, to make the sounds of the kōrero fit in this world.
Just a last question. Do you know about Tutanekai having the bone kōrero? Do you know any other kōrero or materials that he did have in his collection?
No, there's pretty limited material that's ever been gathered, but I know that there are a number of books that have come out and celebrating the stories from particular families. And that's the beauty of our Māori world. So one family will say this story and that's the way it is. Another family will come along and say, no, this is our story. This is our meaning. And what I love about this is that every whānau have their own story. If they haven't got one, then let's start one. You know, so part of the wānanga is if there is no history, if there is no stories from the past, then let's start one today. And then maybe the mokopuna in the future can follow in our footsteps. We're trying to follow in the footsteps of our ancestors, but how that was recorded and how it was kept safe and available for us today, well, that's a whole another lot of things to do. So for me, I just keep it simple. I think Hirini Melbourne and Richard Nuns, he's the other one. They both written back in 1990. The only resource we had was a compilation of a whole lot of little bits of kōrero from many old books, all slammed into one book, and that was what we had in 1990. Today, we've got a number of beautiful books that a lot of the history that have been gathered and shared have now become part of the resources that we now can all access. You can go to the library, you can Google it, you can do all of the things today that we didn't have in 1990. So, you know, it's a big thank you to the trailblazers back then. And so here we are today, trying to continue that kaupapa.
Cool. Well, I think we've got everything that we need for that video.
Ka pai.
Share the kōrero.